Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Students of the Snake in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Ch1 Responsibilities. Today was October 11th, the day after the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konohagakure, and things weren't going well for those inside the village. Especially for the formerly retired newly reappointed village leader, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was sequestered in his regained office with an upset blonde infant boy resting in a basket with a blanket. I can't believe it. Do they really have that little faith in Minato's skill or humanity? Is something wrong, sensei? An almost eerie but not unconcerned voice asked from behind him. Ah, Orochimaru, it's good you came by. The elder Hokage said as he opened the window and let his pale student inside, who was dressed as a normal jounin. And yes, something is indeed wrong. But first, do you think you can reach Jiraiya or Tsunade really soon? Orochimaru shook his head. Sorry. You know Jiraiya is too wrapped up in his spy network to just come here all of a sudden. And need I say anything about Tsunade? At least try. Tell them they've got a new responsibility that requires they return here ASAP. The snake-son inside. I can try, but forgive me if I don't have the best confidence in what my teammates will do about it. But before I even try to, tell me what the new responsibility is first. Sarutobi nodded, knowing it would be pointless for Orochimaru to explain something to the others he himself didn't know anything about. All right. You see that young boy? He pointed to the sleeping infant. Orochimaru nodded. That's Minato's son, Naruto. Naruto Namikaze. I'm assuming it means maelstrom, not fish paste cake, right? Correct, but he won't be called Namikaze. He'll have his mother's maiden name Uzumaki instead. Orochimaru blinked. What for? Well, in the last war, Minato killed off a large number of IWA ninja as if it was nothing. And they're very angry at the humiliation they've received for it. If IWA knew Minato had a living relative, they may seek out his blood and go to extreme measures for it. We can't afford to risk such an attack now or in the foreseeable future, so if his name is different, neither him or the village will be in trouble for it. Sounds good on the surface, but are you gonna keep this a secret from everyone in Konoha too? Sarutobi nodded. Yes. People can't reveal a secret they don't know. So until he's the proper age, he and everyone else must remain ignorant of his heritage. Him too? Why? Orochimaru asked, not seeing the logic. Kids tend to brag about themselves or their families to sound important amongst other kids. If he's ignorant too, then he can't draw too much attention to himself. Sarutobi explained. So Minato's son will have to live like a normal person? Who's going to raise him? Minato and Kushina listed Jiraiya and Tsunade as the child's godparents. Orochimaru looked surprised. Really? Why? Because they both knew and trusted your teammates, Orochimaru. It wasn't personal. Oh, I know that. And I already have a godchild. Remember Daisuke Mitarashi? Orochimaru asked. Sarutobi nodded, having seen the pale son and being friends with the named Jounin and his family. Sadly, he and his wife died yesterday, but they entrusted me with caring for their daughter in such an event. That's good, and Minato thought Jiraiya and Tsunade would be good for Naruto. If you can ask them to come here, that would be best. Orochimaru sighed. I can try, sensei, but remember, I don't have confidence they'll cooperate. I'll be as quick as I can, but while I'm gone, can you watch over Anko-chan for me, please? Sarutobi nodded, not seeing a problem with supervising a 6-year-old for a bit. He could make some ninjas watch over her as a D-rank mission if he needed to focus elsewhere. Orochimaru then left the building and then the village to find his teammates. They were good at hiding from those looking for them, but since he was their teammate, he would have an easier time than others. But that didn't guarantee anything. 3 days later, Orochimaru returned to the Hokage Tower, empty-handed and alone. The first thing he saw when he answered were a bunch of irritated civilians and even a few ninjas too. One of them, a ninja wearing his Hitaite over his left eye, approached him. Ah. One of the Sunin is here. Perhaps you could make Hokage-sama sensible again. Sensible? Orochimaru asked, beyond confused. If there was one thing the so-called professor wasn't, it was insensible. Yeah, he's been hiding up in his office for over a day and being foolish by preventing us from doing our duty. Orochimaru didn't like any of this, and even less when murmurs from the gathered people said things like kill and demon. As far as he knew, the Kyuubi had already been taken care of, so what was all the commotion about? He didn't say anything, just walked past them. The group let him pass with pleasure, figuring he was going to take care of the problem himself. Orochimaru stopped in front of the door, well aware there had to be a seal to prevent entry. So he summoned a snake and had it slip into the vents that led into the room. "Come in, Orochimaru. I'm glad you're back," Sarutobi called out after 3 minutes, knowing only one person would gain his attention with a snake that knew not to attack. The seal briefly gave out and Orochimaru entered, closing the door quickly so the seal could reactivate before anyone took the opportunity to barge in. As soon as he entered, a young girl with long loose purple hair barreled into him. "Orochimaru-san. Thank Kami you're back." She was clearly crying. "What's wrong, Anko-chan?" he asked the sobbing child. He noticed the crib next to the desk and the infant inside was asleep but didn't look comfortable. And now he could see whisker marks on the boy's face. So many bad people were here, trying to hurt the baby. They said so many bad things about him. They tried to hurt me too. Orochimaru's eyes widened and he gave his old teacher a look that said, "Please tell me this is not true." Sarutobi's sigh and closing his eyes did nothing to comfort his student. "I'm afraid it's true." Once the council learned what had transpired with Naruto, they ordered his immediate execution. The civilians took the bait almost completely and even some of the shinobi have too. Why the fuck would they order that? Orochimaru all but shouted, momentarily forgetting he had a child beside him. Well, Minato got rid of the Kyuubi by sealing it away inside Naruto, at the cost of his life. I told them this so they'd know not to be afraid of a repeat attack by the beast and that the child should be considered a hero for bearing such a burden, but right away they craved his blood. Apparently they either believe the infant is simply the fox turned into a helpless child, or Minato did this specifically so the child could be killed, thus killing the fox with it. Orochimaru wanted to throw up. Once in a while he had curious thoughts that others could consider vile, but this was barbaric. So the council that has always worked with Minato actually believes that he would wish a newborn to die just to solve a problem. And if not that, that he was powerful enough to change the great fox demon into a human but not strong enough to actually kill it? With all due respect, sensei, my snakes have eaten things smarter than that. I've tried telling them the same, but they just can't see any other possibility. A few ninja have already tried to kill him at their beckoning, one being Minato's own student, claiming that's what Minato would have done if the demon hadn't killed him. If this keeps up, my hair's going to go gray faster. I've kept him here since then, and Anko-chan's been adamant about protecting him too since she's been here. For the first time, Sarutobi smiled. You should be proud of her. She took a kunao to the shoulder to protect him. Orochimaru looked down at his godchild again and saw her tenderly touch her right shoulder. With the shirt in the way, he couldn't see the bandage around it, but didn't need to. He bent down and hugged his friend's daughter. Good girl, Anko-chan. And at least you didn't get hurt worse. Orochimaru, any news regarding Jiraiya and Tsunade? Sarutobi asked. The snake Sunin tore himself away from the little girl. Sadly no, sensei. I couldn't locate either. I checked all the nearest hot spring resorts, casinos and bars, but got nothing. I might have searched more, but my gut told me to get back here. And I'm glad I did. Sarutobi took a puff from his pipe. This is bad. If we can't get at least one of those two back here soon, Naruto might not last much longer. Then I'll take him in for now. Sarutobi blinked but didn't look surprised or objected. But don't you already have Anko-chan to watch over? And you were never officially declared a possible guardian for Naruto. If two Sunins aren't available, then who better than the one that is? Good point. The Sandaime agreed. But still, won't having two children interfere with your work? Orochimaru tended to work with the ninja R&D division like the Naras and Akimichis when he wasn't on missions, hoping to find ways to give their shinobi advantages over others. By now some rather unscrupulous ideas and theories had come to mind for him and he was half willing to try them out to see if they could work. No more than one would. Besides, it won't be permanent. Tsunade may decide she's gone off on her own long enough soon and decide to settle down back here. And sooner or later Jiraiya has to come back to tell you the results of his snooping. I can watch him in the meantime. After all, I don't see anyone else volunteering that you know won't try to kill him. Sarutobi couldn't argue that point. Very well, Orochimaru. I'll allow you to be Naruto's guardian and caretaker until such time that his designated godparents can do the job instead. Also, I'm creating a few laws for Naruto's protection. No one will be allowed to talk about sealing away the Kyuubi or Naruto's connection to it. So none of the younger generation will be taught anything except that the Kyuubi was beaten by the Yondaime, with the exception of Anko-chan here for obvious reasons. This way, maybe he can live a normal life among his peers. That requires a lot of faith in the people of this village, sensei. And if what I saw outside is any sign, this boy's still going to have a hard time fitting in. Especially if the parents tell their children to stay away from him. Orochimaru commented. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it and hope he can gain some friends that'll see him for him. Sarutobi said, not sounding as confident as he wanted to, which Orochimaru easily noticed. With nothing else to say, Orochimaru thanked his teacher, grabbed Naruto and Anko, and left the building through the window. No way he was going to walk through that crowd again holding the whiskered infant. He took the two to his small modest home and set up a futon and crib in his guest room. Sorry, but you two will have to share a room for a little bit. Anko nodded. That's okay, Orochi-san. I've been sleeping in the office with him and the old man since you left. You aren't going away again so soon, are you? Orochimaru shook his head. No, not until things here get settled for you two. I need to see just how many are going to try to hurt him, and you just because you know him. Again, protecting him was a very good thing to do. Anko smiled. He's cute, especially with those whiskers. I guess he is. I hope that's not the only reason you helped him. Anko shook her head. Nope. I thought he might be able to be that little brother I always wanted. And if he's staying here with me, he really is. Orochimaru smiled. I guess you're right. And as the big sister, you need to be there to keep him safe if someone tries that again. Try not to get yourself killed though, and get me if things get ugly. K. I sure hope this works out until those two get here. Orochimaru thought. Ch2 problems. 2 years have passed since Naruto was born, and they hadn't been pleasant years for him. Even though he was too young to ever remember all of this time, his foster family would never forget it. Everything that happened or almost happened to Naruto, they either softened or took in his place, and while it hurt, in a way it brought them all closer. Tsunade still had not come back to the village or been confirmed seen in that time. Jiraiya had come back a few times to make his reports but never stayed long enough to actually do anything about his responsibility to Naruto, even see him. At times Orochimaru seriously wondered if the peeping Tom was even aware of it or Naruto. Sarutobi told him otherwise though a few months ago. I managed to inform him about Minato's son being alive and reminded him of his duty. The Sandaime had explained to his one remaining student. He says he can't simply stop what he's doing since it would take too long to get restarted once he had free time again and he's onto something potentially vital to Konoha's safety. He doesn't like this, but feels it's best to just let things stay as they are for now. It wasn't that Orochimaru really minded having to care for Naruto, although the frequent feedings and diaper changes in the beginning had been a hassle. Outside that, he liked the boy. The sheer playful innocence of the child was a welcome change to having to deal with shinobi matters all day long, with people that long ago forgot what innocence was. And the youthful curiosity reminded him why he got into R&D in the first place, to help young ninja improve their chances of returning home alive. Over time the concept of lengthening a ninja's lifespan sounded more tempting, and if he ever figured out a promising way, he might try it out. But now it wouldn't be just for his own benefit. Naruto and Anko both helped the Pale Son in a lot in his personal life. Because of his snake-like appearance and albino-ish complexion, Orochimaru never really had much of a social or romantic life. All of his friends were business friends he occasionally hung out with when off duty. Like his teammates or Anko's parents. So he had basically given up on love or having a family of his own long ago. Having Anko and Naruto around filled the void he figured he'd just tolerate for the rest of his life, and in a way he considered them the children he never had. Anko still called him Ji-san though, and Naruto would too when he saw him. One time as a 1-year-old he hissed instead, making both Orochimaru and Anko laugh a lot. Anko missed her parents but liked her foster uncle and brother. She was aware him being with them wasn't intended to be permanent, but decided Naruto was going to be her brother no matter what. She proved it by taking several fists and cuts for defending him or just by being associated with him. The first few were adults which were arrested for child endangerment, but after the rest learned they encouraged their children. Many were reluctant, especially those that knew Anko before, but not all, so she became victimized all over again. Her only response, better me than Otauto. Orochimaru was livid about all this. Even more so when one of the babysitters early on tried to kill them both. Anko had to use a kitchen knife to cut the sitter's Achilles tendon before they could do worse than put a few bruises on them both. The sitter tried to press charges, but since Sarutobi handled the case, the sitter had a restraining order against the residents and occupants since then and community service. After that, he never left them with anyone without a shadow clone or a snake summon nearby. He simply couldn't trust anyone to be near them without him. At the moment Anko, who was 8 years old now, was practicing out in her house's backyard while Naruto took a nap inside their room. The two still shared a room, which made it easier for her to defend him if anything should happen. Anko was throwing some kunaus at human-shaped boards to improve her aim for certain spots, a point Orochimaru told her was vital to perfect for her. After she threw them, her personal summons Kageyaku, which Orochimaru had arranged to be permanently summoned to defend the girl until she was older, would retrieve them for her. Naruto had one too, a snake called Sango that was watching him like a guard dog at the moment. Both snakes were venomous and could become as large as boas if they had to. The only way to tell them apart was Kageyaku was purple with red spots down her back and Sango was orange with black streaks. Naruto was probably the only toddler in the world that wasn't afraid of a snake. Kageyaku had brought Anko her weapons back when she tensed up. Something wrong? Do you hear that buzz? Anko quietly asked. Kageyaku listened. Luckily as a summons she had some skills normal snakes didn't, such as being able to hear like humans could rather than just vibrations through the ground. Yeah, I do. Sounds like bees or something. Soon they both noticed a large swarm of dangerous-sounding small insects flying towards their house and settling around the closed window of the kids' room. They couldn't get in thanks to a few rudimentary seals Orochimaru knew, but they weren't going to stop trying. Anko and Kageyaku almost hid until they saw the bugs weren't after them, just Naruto obviously. Problem was there was nothing either of them could do about it, except one possibility. Kageyaku saw Anko pull out her emergency paper bomb kunau and stopped her before she could use it. No, don't. It won't get rid of all of them and you'll just make it easier for them to get inside. What should I do then? Before the purple snake could answer, a mysterious person dressed like an Umbu agent came up behind them and knocked Anko out. Kageyaku grew to the size of a python and constricted herself around the intruder, only for him to replace himself with a log. With only one thing left to do, Kageyaku dragged Anko into a safe spot outside the house, got smaller, and darted to Orochimaru's office as fast as she could. Orochimaru, one of the heads of Konoha's R&D department, was going over some proposals for funds to explore researching new ideas and why they were advisable. Many were, but they had to be prioritized first. I've got requests for extra protein supplements to the Akimikas, well, they may have to use their own funds if possible. This guy wants to see if one can find a way to siphon off another's chakra like a parasite, handy, but maybe risky. This guy wants to see what would happen if cells from someone with a Kekkei Genkai were introduced into the body of someone without one. I'm intrigued. And this guy, Amaka wants to try new terrain to test possible physical adaptability. Claims to be very promising. Before Orochimaru could make a decision on anything, Kageyaku came in through the air duct. Orochimaru-sama. Danger at the house. He took the snake into his hands and shooed hind away without a word. When he showed up in front he immediately rushed inside and heard hissing coming from the kid's room. He went in to see Naruto sleeping, ignorant of the trouble, but Sango was large and looking outside. Kajiyaka left Orochimaru to go check on Anko. Sango, what happened? A large swarm of bugs, acting like they were on a mission, tried to get in. And some Umbu knocked Anko-chan out but got away before Kajiyakune-san could punish them. Sounds like an Abarame, but why would they do this? They've never had a problem with us before. Apparently one does. The orange snake stated hastily. Orochimaru frowned. I'm bringing this up to the Hokage. Sarutobi knew what to expect when his pale student entered his office. Well, what happened now, Orochimaru? Sensei, things are getting out of hand. The clans are now starting to act out against Naruto. They've kept their distance, probably to avoid offending me, but now a confirmed attack from an Abarame shows this situation isn't getting better. A confirmed attack. How many ninjas use insect swarms? Orochimaru sarcastically asked. I see. The Sandaime responded. But can you confirm the individual? No, I cannot. But I know this won't be the last time. Sensei, I know you've done what you can for the boy, but I'm seriously reconsidering whether or not this is the best environment for him. For either of them. Sarutobi blinked. Orochimaru, that can't be done. It's not safe for them out there. It's not safe for them in here either. If anything, it's worse. Orochimaru shouted angrily. You've put in so much effort to keep Naruto from having enemies outside the village, but you keep forgetting he has them inside it too. I forget nothing, Orochimaru. Sarutobi countered sternly. I am not oblivious to the torment that has been going on at your household. Have you forgotten that all those arrested have suffered for their crimes? You have helped, but those not arrested just find new ways to hurt them. Usually through their own children. Are you aware that none of the parents will let their kids play with Anko-chan anymore? Just because she's the demon's sister. She used to have a whole network of friends, now I can count the number of kids that still dare to talk to her on one hand. And do you honestly think Naruto will be in a better situation when he's older? Does this sound like a healthy environment for them? No, but I can't very well tell parents how to raise their children nor the children to disobey their parents. Orochimaru folded his arms. Not only that, but many of the merchants are trying things too. Anko-chan can barely buy anything unless I'm right there with her, since they won't dare overcharge or deny me, and I know the situation won't be any different when Naruto's older. You think it's good for them to be in a town that denies them fair prices or maybe the right to shop even if they can pay? Sarutobi didn't answer, mostly because he knew his student had more to say. Sensei, I've gone to a lot of trouble to ensure the safety of those two. I even have snakes around them 24/7, and I could only do that by giving Manda 4 living scarifices, which I got thanks to your order. Sarutobi nodded in recollection. 4 Umbu were found guilty of trying to murder the 2 children by arson, and he allowed Orochimaru to execute the punishment. While brutal, at least some good came out of it in the form of snake guardians. Sensei, I'm seriously considering that this is not the best place for them to live. Orochimaru, your concern is admirable. Sarutobi started. Spare me the bullshit, Sensei. I know you are going to try to convince me they're better off here. Give me one good reason why I should let them stay here any longer rather than just take them away. Simple. Sarutobi stated. Minato sacrificed his life so his son could protect this village. If you take him away from it, it will make his sacrifice meaningless. If the villagers keep trying to kill him, it'll have the same results. Orochimaru countered. If Minato could speak to you right now, what would he say? I don't know. Maybe he'd agree with you, maybe he wouldn't. The council and citizens here have been trying to speak for Minato so much since his death I'm almost afraid to now. But consider this, Orochimaru, you're only the acting guardian of Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade are still the ones with majority say regarding his whereabouts, and Jiraiya thinks that Shut the fuck up, Sensei. Now Orochimaru looked pissed. How can you possibly have the nerve to say that? You actually expect me to believe that Jiraiya's opinion of Naruto's well-being outclasses mine, the one who has actually been raising the boy for the past 2 years? The man hasn't even seen Naruto in that time, and he's the one who knows best? He's not the one who's taken hits for the boy, nor has he fed or clothed or sheltered him. Hell, Sensei, you know as well as I do Anko-chan and I are the only ones who have any real claim to be the boy's family. Well, I can't argue that, but still, give the village another chance for the children to fit into. For my sake if nothing else. Orochimaru sighed. Fine sensei, I'll try to tolerate this a little more. But if nothing changes for the better, I will do something about it, with your permission or not. Sarutobi slowly nodded in acceptance. Very well. Tell them hi for me. Orochimaru nodded and then poofed away, revealing he had been a shadow clone the whole time. Guess he's getting even more protective of them both. Does that make him a mother hen snake? So no luck? Danzo asked from within his secret chamber. Sorry Danzo-sama, but the residence is better guarded than previously anticipated. Toranabarame, a bug-wielding member of Root answered. Damn, I figured that a Sunin would make sure his abode would be secure but apparently he did better than I thought. Danzo mumbled in his head. But I want that tool. If I can't get it by force, maybe I have to try a different approach. Ch3 Pain. A few days later without attacks, Orochimaru had a visitor come to him at his office. Ah, Danzo-san, what brings you here today? Orochimaru had always tried to be civil to the crippled council member, mainly because the Warhawk had always supported the R&D department to improve shinobi abilities, but that didn't mean Orochimaru trusted him. After all, this guy had been the only member of the civilian council to not order Naruto's death, and Orochimaru did not believe the man was just being compassionate back then. Well, Orochimaru, I have a proposition for you. You see, I've heard from a colleague of mine that you're experimenting on the introduction of Kekkei Genkai into new hosts. And I've come AC-. Hold on a second. Orochimaru interrupted. A colleague told you? I haven't discussed that with anyone and I haven't even approved the start of the experiment. My source must have been the researcher to submit the request then. I was under the impression that it had already been approved. Danzo calmly answered. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. What goes on here isn't meant to be discussed with those outside to keep our secrets safe. You of all people Danzo should know the value of keeping secrets. You have no idea how right you are. Danzo quickly thought. Well, back to what I was saying, I had chanced upon some stored DNA of the Shodei Hokage. And as you know, your teammate Tsunade Senju is the last known of that bloodline and it's dormant in females. And she's also reached the age where conception is almost impossible, if not already impossible. A very useful Kekkei Genkai for us could be lost forever, unless we seek a new means to keep it going. Orochimaru thought it over. Well, it sounds reasonable, but what if the subject rejects the new DNA? That's what experiments are for. Even so, I have multiple fields to explore and I can't give funding to them all. Danzo smiled. Tell you what. I'll supply the funds for this project and we'll use the Mokuton as the trial run. If we can succeed in getting a successful user, then we can someday acquire indefinite amounts of Kekkei Genkai for our village. And in return? Orochimaru asked. Nothing at the moment. How about an IOU? Orochimaru did not like the sound of that. An IOU to this man was like having one to the Yakuza. But the idea he was proposing sounded enticing. All right, we'll go forward with it. You'll have to supply us with about 3 million ryo up front though and your IOU must be within reason. Danzo smiled like he got away with murder. Pleasure doing business with you Orochimaru-san. Let's hope for the best. Another year went by and things sort of stabilized for the Orochi household. Attacks lessened but did not stop and the civilians resorted to angry glares when they saw Naruto and Anko. Orochimaru had made it clear that any attacks would be returned just as badly to the attackers by himself personally, and Sarutobi said he had the rights to. Anko lost more and more friends because of their parents' prejudices or peer pressure, so now she was down to 2. The first was a girl named Kurane Uehai, whose parents were more open-minded to the Jinhiriki and his situation. The second was an orphan boy named Kabuto Yakushi, recently brought to the village after being found alone in a battlefield and didn't mind the kids either. Neither were as lively as Anko usually was, but they could keep up with her. Naruto himself didn't have too many friends. It was hard to when most parents didn't want to bring their children over. Generally speaking, if Naruto's secret didn't keep them away, his snake guardian scared them off without even trying. Sango didn't like that, but she was sworn to protect him, so she couldn't just leave him vulnerable. And it got tougher after the insect attack, since Orochimaru wouldn't let anyone from a clan enter his house without his personal approval and presence. So in short, only the Yamanaka, Nara, and Akimichi clan heads had their children come over because they trusted the Yondame's skills and hoped their kids wouldn't be afraid of snakes later on. The Hyuga would have if they were more open to mingle with others, and the Uchihas deemed the whole issue unworthy of significance, their words. At the present time, a soon-to-be 3-year-old Naruto was hanging out at the Yamanaka flower shop with a 3-year-old Ino while Orochimaru and Anko were trying to find him a birthday present or two. Inoichi was watching the two kids have fun their own way in the back of the room while going over a newspaper and noticed nothing out of place. There were a few insects buzzing around, but that was normal for a place filled to the brim with flowers. But after a little bit the buzzing noise of insects got a little too loud to be normal and Inoichi got suspicious. The kids noticed it and got scared, looking to Inoichi to do something about it. He looked around sharply but saw nothing suspicious, but went for the cabinet and grabbed the pesticide to be sure. A large black swarm of insects massed together through the open windows and entered the unsealed building. Ino screamed and ran for her father. Naruto tried to as well, but the insects swiftly covered his body and started attacking him. He screamed and tried to swat them all off, but fell to the floor and his movements slowed. Sango could do nothing but watch and hate herself for it. Something's not right. Those aren't normal Aberame insects, those just eat chakra, not sting, and bite. These things are actually wounding Naruto. Inoichi thought, as horrified as he and his daughter looked. Ino tried to help swat them off, but her father grabbed her hand. No, don't. Those bugs will hurt you too. Use the spray, Ryu-chan. Ino pleaded. I can't now, Naruto would get poisoned too. Naruto screamed again and his body glowed a faint red. The insects backed off bit but didn't leave his body or stop entirely. Unable to take the pain anymore, Naruto did the one thing any child in his situation would do, he ran. He didn't know where he was going or what he'd do when he got there, but he had to just run. The Yamanakas followed. Think he might like this, Ji-san? Anko asked as she pointed to a play sword on display in a window. Orochimaru was about to answer, but any answer died on his tongue when he heard a familiar scream down the street. Anko heard it too and lost interest in the question entirely. Both looked down the street in hopes they were wrong. They saw a young child running around with a swarm of bugs clinging to him. A few passerby would try to beat the bugs off him, but they moved off on their own just enough to reveal who the child was. Once people saw, they either looked the other way, or kept beating him for a different reason. Orochimaru, Anko, and Kajiaka rushed to help him. They were a little relieved when an Umbu agent dropped by the boy and did a fireball jutsu. The bugs fled off the boy, leaving Naruto to take the brunt of the attack. Orochimaru and Anko were horrified by this, and even more so to see the Umbu didn't look repentant or even tempted to put out the flame. Although Orochimaru saw that last part more than Anko did. Orochimaru used a gentle wind jutsu to put out the flame while Anko yelled at the Umbu, crying in anger. You jerk. You missed. That depends on where I was aiming. Anko gasped and then began hitting the masked ninja's legs, to which he reacted by kicking her off. She was undaunted by this and tried to attack again, but he simply left the area, seeing no reason to stick around anymore. But not before Kajiaka managed to give him a painful bite on his right calf. Before the insects could attack again, Orochimaru used a fire jutsu on them as intended and they were completely incinerated. He looked at Naruto and was very pissed, but not at Naruto of course. The blonde boy had second-degree burns almost all over his arms and face, with the clothed areas only bearing first-degree burns, and was breathing heavily. Otauto? Is he going to be okay, Ji-san? Anko asked tearily, on the verge of hysteria. Orochimaru carefully picked him up. He will be. I know how to best help him. Anko-chan, get on my back. Kajiaku, go get Sango. The purple snake nodded and darted away while Anko got a hold of the snake Sunin's shoulders. He then darted off to a safe place for them all. Some civilians started to wonder if maybe the one Sunin still in town had been pushed too far. That's it. I've had enough of this. Minato must be rolling around in his grave. Orochimaru angrily thought as he entered his house and placed Naruto down on the couch. The Kyuubi's chakra was already healing the young boy. And fortunately for him he was unconscious by now. The two snakes entered the house a few moments later and got by the couch too. Anko, with tear-streaked cheeks and red eyes, hovered over her brother figure like a watchdog. Jisan, what's gonna happen to him? He'll be fine, Anko-chan. He's already healing and should be as good as new by tonight. What should we do about that bastard that burned him? Anko asked, sounding a little more angry now. Orochimaru never bothered to enforce appropriate language for the kids since they heard offensive things almost daily anyway. We'll see to him. And also whoever sent those bugs at him. That wasn't natural either. But first, I've got something bigger in mind. Anko blinked. Like what, Jisan? This has gone on for far too long. Sarutobi-sensei can't bargain his way out of this. I'm going to make sure this stops once and for all. The snake son instated with hostility and venom, and maybe a little glee at the last idea. Anko smiled. Can I help? Absolutely. But we have to act tonight and you can't tell a soul. He told her, to which she nodded. Good, now go pack up everything you have. We're going on a little trip. How long? Long enough. Anko looked worried about having to maybe leave her home and remaining friends for who knows how long. But after looking at Naruto one more time, she knew it was a matter of time before that happened to her too. And Orochimaru had never led her wrong before. I'll be ready in a jiffy. She told him before heading for her room. It won't be that easy, Master Orochimaru. Kaguyaku commented. Oh, I know that. That's why I'm going to put on a big show for Konoha and do a little damage too. The Pale Sonin replied. Like what? Sango asked. Well, let's just say Konoha will learn what happens when you try to corner a viper. He told them with a sinister chuckle. And best of all, since that meeting with the Kyumo representatives is tonight, few will be available to interfere in my little scheme. Night came over Konoha, and it would be a night that shaped its future indefinitely. Most of the representatives of the clans were at a meeting with visitors from Kyumo, hoping to arrange an alliance of sorts. The streets were deserted as people went home to sleep with Night Umbu making their rounds. Overall, nothing ominous or unexpected. Sarutobi had called a brief break during the long discussion with the foreign ninjas so everyone could stretch their legs and use the restroom if needed. While he himself got a drink from a break room, an Umbu agent approached him. Hokage-sama, fire has just broke out at Orochimaru-sama's residence and the R&D department. Sarutobi frowned. Ah fuck. This will end badly, I just know it. Thanks for alerting me. Tell my advisors and the clan heads I'm going to personally check this matter out and no decisions are to be confirmed without my presence. Hopefully this won't take too long. The old man then got into his combat outform and headed for Orochimaru's house, hoping to settle his student before he acted rash. Not that it wouldn't be uncalled for, he admitted. Ch4 Deception. Sarutobi arrived at the Orochi household to see it burning to the ground. The Umbu that arrived with him began immediately putting it out with water jutsus. Once the fire was gone, they salvaged through the wreckage for any bodies. Sarutobi prayed they wouldn't find any. One of the Umbu captains came close to the elderly Hokage. Hokage-sama, there is little you can do here. Perhaps it would be more beneficial for you to investigate the other arson incident. So this is a confirmed arson? Sarutobi asked, not that he doubted it of course. Most likely, sir. Orochimaru-sama was a very skilled ninja, so this being just an accident is highly unlikely. My guess is someone with a few matches or something decided to act against the occupants and caught them off guard. Sarutobi nodded, having come to the same conclusion. I'm sorry for everything, Orochimaru, Anko. Naruto. At least you are out of your misery now. He sighed, then thought of something else. Wait, if this was just a stroke of luck, it would be too much of a coincidence for Orochimaru's lab to be struck at the same time. Something's going on here. I will go check out the other scene as you suggested. Take all bodies to the morgue or infirmary, whichever is appropriate for them. Sarutobi told the Umbu captain before heading off for the R&D building. Said Umbu returned to work with the others going through the wreckage. Find anything? No confirmed deaths yet, sir. A weasel-masked Umbu told him. Good. Let's hope it stays that way, or Hokage-sama will not be happy. When Sarutobi made it to the burning wing of the building, he didn't know what he expected to find. But he definitely didn't expect to find Orochimaru standing in the flames crying while all his work burned to ashes. Orochimaru, what is the meaning of this? Did you do this? The Snake Sunin slowly turned to look at his mentor, eyes watering but as cold and hard as steel. No sensei, I have done nothing. It's Konoha that has done all this. And maybe you by passive association too, but I won't hold you to it. What are you talking about? I should have done what I thought was best long ago, your please be damned. But because I felt I owed you, I stayed and kept Naruto here. And now, he's gone. Sarutobi paled. You don't mean? Orochimaru nodded. Another attack, this time a successful one. Ask the Yamanakas, they saw it too. Naruto was ambushed by some type of insect I've never seen before, making me think the Abarames have others besides their norms or someone else was framing them. Either way, that combined to someone setting my house on fire, Naruto didn't make it, and Anko-chan got caught in the flames. Not to mention, when all the civilians and even an Umbu wearing a pig mask saw him, they just added to his pain. I bet the Umbu started the fire since he used a fire jutsu on Naruto earlier today. Sarutobi sighed, feeling a wave of remorse and regret. Orochimaru, I'm sorry for your loss. Spare me the bullshit sentiment, sensei. I've warned you several times this could happen, and you always said no one would go that far. Well, guess what? They did, and my two godchildren are dead because you thought it was easier to not get involved more than you did. And I don't care what some legal form may say, Naruto was mine. And all my work for this village has been destroyed by someone else too. He spread his arms to better imply the fire going on around themselves. This is what Konoha has come to? Trying to kill a child and claiming he didn't deserve to even be conceived? And attacking those close to him for spite? This is the Konoha Minato died for? Naruto should not have had to suffer for this horrid place. Orochimaru. Sarutobi was now worried about what his student would do in retaliation. Sensei, I'm going to take a page out of Tsunade's book and tell them all to fuck off. After tonight, not even you can give me reason to stay here even until the sun rises. I'm wiping my hands off Konoha as of now. Sarutobi knew he couldn't stop his student, and deep down he couldn't fault him for taking this course of action. Where will you go? What will you do? For the first time in this entire discussion, Orochimaru grinned. People can't tell a secret they don't know, sensei. If I don't know, I'll be forced to put you in the bingo book as a missing nin. Orochimaru scoffed. Like you did with Tsunade. The Slug Sunin and her apprentice were probably the only registered ninja under Konoha that were not contained within the city and not classified as missing nin. Jiraiya wasn't classified that way because he was gone regularly for business in Tsunade's case, just leisure, or apathy, maybe both, but she wasn't listed in the book. Tsunade is no threat to us. With you in this emotional state I can't promise anything. Sarutobi replied sternly. I will not ally myself with any enemy village sensei, but neither will I ally myself with this one anymore. So what are you going to do? Just wander around and wait to die? Oh, I'm in no hurry for death, never have been. But I'll find something to do to occupy myself. But it's none of your business, sensei. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll getting a little too hot in here. Orochimaru said before shoes-hining away. Sarutobi did the same and the building continued to burn until Umbu arrived to put it out. Before the meeting with Kumo could resume, Sarutobi called the whole council together. Tonight, Naruto Uzumaki has been killed by some unknown arsonist. A few cheers from over half the council made him pause and flare up his ki to silence them. And because of that and the reaction I just witnessed, Orochimaru has cut all ties to the village. He can't do that. We need him here. A random civilian shouted. Sarutobi glared some more. Maybe you should have thought of that before encouraging all that mistreatment amongst the kids in his care. Both of them are dead now because of idiots like you all. Why the hell should he remain here to keep working for such a village? Would you? At least my child isn't a monster. Another random member commented, ignoring the Hokage's glare. Irregardless of how you all may see the situation, Orochimaru sees it as the final straw for his patience. He has no reason to help us anymore, and I probably wouldn't be surprised if he decided to do something drastic later on. Feel proud of yourselves, for you've helped us lose a valuable shinobi and possibly made several people you know targets of his wrath. And for what? Because you can't let go of a grudge no matter who the victim is? What a shining example of good leadership. But enough of this, let's just finish this meeting and call it a night. They all followed his lead, but several were already celebrating in their heads over the reported death of a blonde-whiskered boy. Did it work? Anko asked as her foster uncle came into view from her hiding spot, a bunker outside the city walls designed for civilian safety in invasion times. Like a charm. Orochimaru told her as he ruffled her hair. By tomorrow morning, everyone will think you and Naruto are dead and I left grieving. We can find somewhere to live with no one looking for you too. And I can train you both to fight back like shinobi should. Anko smiled. She was glad for that. Orochimaru told her they were going to leave their home and not come back. She was a little frightened. Especially if Tracker Ninja tried to find them. He told her he was going to stage their deaths, and that way no one would hunt them. Everyone had to think that, even the Hokage, or it wouldn't work. And apparently it did. No more bad people. Well, no more from Konoha at least. There are still enemies outside, but they won't attack as much. Orochimaru-sama, is it true we can't go back? A young boy with white hair asked. Well, you could, but where would you go, Kabuto-kun? Orochimaru found the boy in the lab before the fire had started to attract Sarutobi. Apparently the boy had been the subject of a few experiences Danzo had been doing without Orochimaru's knowledge. He wasn't supposed to even be involved, but Danzo had his own agenda, and damn those that didn't go along with it. He had been trying to create many Kekkei Genkais, with just the Mokuton tests being a cover front. According to the results Orochimaru saw tonight, most subjects dies, but 2 young boys and 1 girl survived. One was about Anko's age named Yamato and he was a success in acquiring the Mokuton, and the only one at that. Kabuto had been the second boy and the subject of better-than-normal healing experiments, and they seemed to work too. The girl had been Kurane, who had not been tested on yet but had been selected since she was Anko's friend. Her parents were killed 2 days ago, making her an orphan now. And according to the results, a second lab had been doing similar work under Danzo's orders, masked as Orochimaru's approval, in the Land of the Sea, being headed by a researcher Orochimaru knew named Amaki. And he had some successes too. Orochimaru, already unnerved by the horrible treatment done to Naruto and Anko, became even more upset when this was revealed to him. His work was being usurped from him under the guise of his own approval, making it look like it was all his idea. There might have been a time he would it, but he was in no mood for it now. So he took the kids to a safe place, went back and set fire to the lab to destroy his notes, ensuring no one else could misuse his work, and waited for Sarutobi to show up and act his part. He lied about Naruto and Anko's death to ensure no one else would follow him, believing him to have left in grief rather than protecting the children. Back at the present, Orochimaru let everyone who had been hiding come back outside. If you want to go back, Kabuto-kun, you can, as long as you swear not to say a word about tonight. Same for you, Kurane-chan. The bespectacled boy sighed wearily. No, that's all right, Orochimaru-sama. I don't have any family there, so what do I have to go back to? Kurane tearily nodded. Yeah, me too. Where will we go? Anko asked. Kaguya settled on her shoulders to hear this while Sango did the same with Naruto. Yamato looked at the snakes wide-eyed, afraid they would bite. First, we're going to settle some business in Land of the Sea with someone misusing my work. And then we'll go somewhere I know no one we can't trust will find us there. Where? Naruto asked. I'll tell you later. Not a good idea to say too much near here, and we should get out of here. Orochimaru answered. With no other words, he picked up Naruto and placed him on his back. Kaguya got larger and let Anko and Kurane ride her, with Sango doing the same for Kabuto and Yamato. They started running or slithering away from Konoha, not sure when or if they'd ever see that village again. Orochimaru also created several shadow clones and had them run in several directions with extra summoned snakes to tag along, making it that much harder for anyone to find them. An hour later the kids had fallen asleep, and everyone on the move slowed down a little to not disturb them too much. Kajiaku stopped completely though, and turned her head around. Orochimaru, I smell someone coming up from behind. The Pale Sun placed Naruto on Sango's back, getting ready to fight. He went off to get rid of this potential threat, only to find a Kumonin running towards Land of Lightning. He would have done nothing about it, except he saw the burlap bag the Kumonin carried with something moving inside it trying to get out. Remembering the meeting that had been going on, he suspected something foul and intercepted the ninja. That had better not be what I think you have in there. None of your business, freak. The Kumo ninja told him bitterly. Orochimaru pulled out Kusanagi and stabbed the man before he could get away. He then took the bag and opened it to find a bruised and crying little girl with white eyes. So, did you decide on your own to kidnap a child, or were you ordered to? Fuck you. The Kumonin answered, coughing up some blood. Orochimaru kicked his head, snapping his neck, then held the crying hurt girl. Don't worry, you're safe now. I'm Orochimaru. What's your name? Hi. Hinata. Well, Hinata-chan, want me to have someone take you home? He asked, and got worried when she looked even more frightened and shook her head no fiercely. Why? What's wrong? Irionte, there, is bad. Okasan was good, but now gone. Everyone else hate me. Don't wanna go back. Please don't make me. She broke down after that and wept into his chest. Orochimaru then noticed that some of the bruises weren't as fresh as others, meaning she had been hurt before the kidnapping. I can't believe it. It sounds like some of the Hyuga like to beat up their own rather than just Naruto. That place keeps getting worse and worse. He calmed himself before he spoke to avoid upsetting Hinata. Don't worry, you'll stay with us in the meantime. We're going to find a home where bad things like that don't happen to kids like you. She gasped and hugged him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. No sweat. Now, get some rest and we can get out of here, far away from Konoha. He then looked at the dead Kumo shinobi. But first, a little something for whoever told him to do this. When the dead Kumonin was found a few days later, it looked like a rock slide had happened and crushed him. The wound from a blade looked to be done by accident in the fall. Hinata's body couldn't be found, but the bag was found snagged on a branch in a river downstream, implying her body was lost at sea. And since the death appeared to be an act of kami rather than caused by Konoha, Kumo couldn't make a demand for a Hyuga death, sparing Hisashi. The Hyugas were grateful, but spared no time or effort to confirm Hinata's death. Ch5 marked. After a long run and a boat ride from the southern edge of Land of Fire's coastline, Orochimaru and his charges had reached the Land of the Sea. He himself had set up a lab there to attempt some things away from Konoha to ensure some secrets didn't leak out in case of spies, plus some direct access to aquatic resources helped. He hadn't been there in years, so another researcher named Amaki had been running it in the meanwhile. Is this where we're gonna stay, Ji-san? Anko asked as she got out of the boat. Orochimaru shook his head. Can't. This would be one of the first places they'd check for me. We're here to see just what was done while I was away. Then we'll head for our new home. Where is that? Kurane asked. I told you I'd tell you when we get there. Everyone got off the boat. Orochimaru and the two snakes led the 5 kids towards the hidden lab built by the shore, designed to look like a run-down building no one ever cared to renovate. At least on the surface, inside it was everything a laboratory was supposed to be. Orochimaru had made it that way himself, using the old, hiding in plain sight, principle to make it so unlikely to be bothered with. And even if someone did bother to try and sneak inside, there were workers already inside who could get rid of them. Orochimaru led everyone inside while carrying Hinata. The poor girl had barely walked at all since she came into his company, and he suspected it was more because of shock or fear than her injuries. She said even less too, but she at least smiled when everyone tried to lift her spirits. Orochimaru led them through the corridors into the building, a faint trail of light bulbs guiding him into the research center. None of the kids asked where they were going since he already explained it to them, but they started to feel something was wrong here. Orochimaru sensed nothing, well used to surroundings such as this from decades of ninjahood. He came to a closed door that wasn't locked, so he opened it and stepped inside. Right away he wished he hadn't done that, to spare the children from the sight of the room's contents if nothing else. There were large glass containers that looked like oversized test tubes lined against one side of the room, each but two with a person inside it. The ages and genders varied, and out of all of them only one container had a glowing light on it, indicating something unique but not immediately obvious. There was also a table with various pieces of lab equipment and papers spread about. It looked like someone here had been doing some rather unorthodox human experimenting here, something the kids weren't supposed to see. "What is this place?" Kurane asked. "This was a lab to see how we could improve our ninjas' physical capabilities." Orochimaru answered. "This wasn't what I was expecting though. Especially that, whatever that is." He then pointed to the glass tubes. "Are they, even alive?" Yamato asked, having flashbacks to the experiments done on him for the past year and being the only one to walk away alive from it. Orochimaru carefully looked over each one. The one tank with the glowing light had a monitor that showed a faint heartbeat. He then noticed all the tanks had monitors too, but this one was the only one actually working. And judging by the size of the person inside, the test subject was a very young child, making the pale Sunin uneasy. "This one is. I'm going to get her out of there." He checked everywhere for a latch of some kind, and found one near the top of the tank. He pulled it, and the liquid inside the container drained out, letting the captive inside sink to the bottom. Once it was drained, the glass casing opened up and Orochimaru pulled the small person out onto the floor. This test subject was indeed a young child, a girl close to Naruto and Hinata's age who couldn't possibly be more than half a year older at most. She had long purple hair and a pale complexion, but not albino-ish like Orochimaru. She also didn't have any clothes on, so Orochimaru wrapped her in his jacket to keep her covered. In doing so, he saw a strange mark on her left shoulder that looked like 3 tomos inside a circle, resembling a seal of some sort. "Is she okay?" Naruto asked. "I think, but I'm not sure. Somebody did something weird to her." "Ah. Orochimaru-sama. Nice to have you drop by," a new voice said from a door to the left of the one everyone had entered from. Orochimaru turned to see a thin man with white hair and a long nose standing in a lab coat with his hands behind his back. "Amake, what have you been doing here?" Orochimaru asked. "Why, exactly what you ordered me to do. Trying to find new ways to enhance ninja physical skills and terrain adaptability. This is not what I had in mind." Orochimaru snapped, pointing to the glass tubes and the unconsciousness purple-haired girl. "No, but it's even better. You see, I found a lost boy some time ago who has every unusual blood, with so much potential to be unleashed. Maybe even the first of a new Kekkei Genkai. Apparently he can actually shapeshift during times of bloodlust or stress, and to make it even better, with the right method, his blood can give those powers to others as well." Amake told Orochimaru. Orochimaru admitted to himself the idea was an interesting one, but something about this bothered him. "And you experimented on children too? How could you?" Amake shrugged. "Well, in order for it to work, the blood must be injected into the jugular, and if the subject survives the transfer, a mark appears there. For children the survival rate appears to be the highest, so I had to work with young ones. But I've been running kind of low, so I'm glad you brought me some more." Now Orochimaru was mad. "Don't even think about it. I'm trying to give these children a bright future, not one where others think less of them for whatever reason they have." Kageyaku and Sango got in front of the kids defensively and became anaconda-sized. Amake was unintimidated. "Don't you think they'd be better off with the gift I can give them? Think about it. A secondary source of chakra if the primary one runs dangerously low. And if the user gets close to death, a second stage is activated and the user gets the ability to transform into a second form, useful for terrain handling and combat purposes. What ninja wouldn't want that? You can't force this onto kids that don't want it." The Sunin replied. The researcher shrugged. "They're children. They don't know what they want. I don't think I can let you keep doing this, Amake," Orochimaru stated as he pulled out some explosive tags. He didn't light them since that might put the children in danger, but he did show them off. Guess I'll have to show you how effective my work can be. Amaka said as he swiftly pulled out a syringe and threw it at the group. Before anyone could block it, the needle struck Anko in her jugular, making her scream. Anko-chan! Everyone yelled as Orochimaru pulled the syringe out. Anko kept yelling and squirming on the floor. It hurts. It hurts. The beginnings of the curse mark started to form around the puncture wound like a burn. While they were distracted with Anko's agony, Amaka took the opportunity to get several more syringes and hit all the remaining children in the jugular with great aim. All of them fell screaming and writhing as their blood burned internally. Kajiyaku and Sango wrapped around the long-nosed researcher and began constricting him tightly. Orochimaru stood in front of him. Why the hell did you do that? And while we're at it, how were you able to? Well, you needed to be convinced my work has value. As for how, well, I guess you and your snake friends were just too slow to do anything about it. Forgive us, Orochimaru-sama. We were more focused on Anko-chan than the others for that brief moment. Sango said regretfully. I was at fault too for that. Amaka, tell me you have an antidote for this. Amaka tried to hold in a laugh but failed and laughed loudly. Now why the hell would I create an antidote for a power-up? What do you think I am? Stupid. Orochimaru was really disgusted with this man. Long ago, he thought he was rather insightful and quite possibly capable of opening new frontiers for Konoha's ninjas. Apparently that was true, but he used it for the wrong reasons. Had he been doing this to willing subjects or adults, Orochimaru might not have minded too much. In time he would have probably used this procedure to give the village's shinobi an extra edge against their enemies. But the Sunin had several children under his care and anybody who tried to hurt them was automatically an enemy. Kajiyaku, Sango, finish him off. The two snakes hissed happily and tightened their grip on him more and more until he was crushed thinner than a used-up toothpaste tube. Orochimaru checked on all the kids at once, first noting they had stopped screaming, just breathing deeply and asleep. On each one of their neck bases was a curse mark, 3 tomos inside a circle. Even Naruto had one. Damn, I thought maybe the Kyuubi's chakra could filter it out of his system. Wonder why it didn't. Truth was, at this point of time all the Kyuubi's chakra could do for Naruto was heal physical wounds and nothing more. That would change as he got older, but for now to do more would be dangerous to his health. So the curse mark was there to stay. Orochimaru felt there was only one thing he could do here. With the two snakes' help, he pulled all the children, even the extra girl, back outside and went in to recover any info regarding this curse mark before setting the place on fire with explosive tags. He didn't see any of Amaka's assistants inside, and while that bothered him, he figured it was probably for the best. Less trouble to deal with. He then got them back on the boat and headed back for the mainland. Night came and Anko was the first to recover, sitting upright around a campfire. She looked around to see Orochimaru sitting on a log watching over them all with Kajiyaku and Sango, and also the new girl who seemed to be awake already. What happened, Ji-san? It's a long story, Anko-chan. I'll tell you when the others wake up too so I don't have to repeat it. Orochimaru told her, then offered her a piece of dango he bought in the last town. Want some? She eagerly took it, but ate slowly. Hi, I'm Isaribi. The new girl said to Anko. Sorry you had to get the seal too. Seal? Anko asked, then her eyes darted to the mark on the other purple-headed girl's shoulder. Anko tenderly touched her shoulder and felt the flesh was soft and painful to touch, making her pull her fingers back and wince. What happened to me? Orochimaru sighed. I'm sorry Anko-chan, but that man gave you something bad and I don't know how to get rid of it. How bad? Bad enough that some people could call you a monster for it. Anko shrugged. They already do that. What else is new? Well, according to what I've been reading, this mark gives you a chakra boost when you run low, but it means you are more likely to act violently when that happens. And there's a second stage involved if you almost die, giving you the ability to transform into some kind of creature when you need to. Orochimaru explained. Anko blinked in surprise. And there's nothing you can do about it. He shook his head. Maybe I can get Jiraiya to seal its effects, but I haven't seen him in years, so I can't promise that. Anko then looked over Naruto and the others, who started showing signs of waking up soon. Then I'll use it to defend my Otauto. If I'm stuck with this, might as well give it a good use. Anko-chan, I wouldn't. Orochimaru started to protest, then thought it over, and slowly nodded. If that's what you want. The others woke up and Orochimaru explained to them what happened and what they involuntarily acquired. Not surprisingly, they were unhappy, but they had the same thoughts about it as Anko did. Orochimaru hoped that they wouldn't come to regret this later on. Check the description for the links to the author.